Hi there, my name is Toby and this is part 3 of my series on effortless walking. Now today we're going to be working on the hip joint, and the hip is a very complex joint. Of course it moves in all different directions, and so today we're working on moving it side to side, swaying in the hips. And this is a way you can effectively shift your weight side to side and stretch your weight, hold your weight in the stretch in the hip joint itself, in the ligaments. And this creates a bounce and elasticity, and you can see here I'm just bouncing side to side with a little twist in the hips and projecting the hips right out. You can feel the bone project at the side, so one hip goes in and the other hip goes out. And I'm also twisting a little bit just to start shuffling. So I'm shuffling as I sway the hips side to side. And now the same thing, swaying the hips, but I'm doing a little circle. So you can see it's natural, you don't try and force it, but as you push the hips in, it draws the leg in, and then as you use the other hip to push out, it throws the leg out. So you're using this movement in the hip joint itself, swaying the hips side to side, shifting your weight side to side to create a shuffle, dragging your foot across the floor. But you see, this is all about isolating the hip joint itself. It's very much neglected. We've got to learn how to use it. It is ever so tricky to do, because walking involves so many complex things. There's so many degrees of freedom, and we have to get each one of them right. So now here's the next bit. I'm balancing on the ankles, so I've got to bounce on the ankles, and now I'm projecting the hips backwards and forwards to rise up and sink down. And you can see I'm also levering slightly forward. I'm still keeping a neutral spine, belly pulled in, so the belly is always pulled in, so the spine has got to stay in this neutral position. And now I'm shifting my weight side to side, projecting the hips backwards to create a stronger lever, like I'm jumping. It's more like a jump. But I'm also swaying. I'm swaying the hips side to side like I was doing before. And I'm staying on the ankles. I've got to bounce in the ankles. So now it looks like I'm dancing around. It's like a sort of traditional folk dance, but jumping around. But this is all about finding a cushion and elasticity in the hips and the ankles, and not the knees. See, the knees don't do so much work. This is where we injure ourselves. Now this is going slowly. This is moving towards sort of Tai Chi walking, or even there's another style called Parkour, internal martial art, and they walk round and round in circles. So what we're doing here is, again, dragging the feet together and apart in a semicircle, but I'm sinking the hips backwards and swaying the hips to the side, and at the same time bouncing in the ankles. So again, I'm holding my structure, the arms are up in order to keep the shoulders up and back, the rib cage open, slight backwards arch in the lumbar, belly pulled in, neutral spine. A head should be nice and tall. I'm looking a tiny bit too much forward because I'm concentrating on thinking about what I'm doing, but ideally the head should be nice and tall, just a chin pulled in. And then what you're doing is feeling this cushion, this bounce through the hip joint and the ankle joint. Now from here, nice and tall. Now, okay, it's a bit funny. What you've got to do here is I'm pulling myself forward. So when you walk, it's like you're being propelled from the sacrum. See, I'm pushing myself back in here from the sacrum. This is how you've got to feel it. So from the hip joint, this happens from the hip joint. You squeeze the glutes, drive the hips forward, but you've still got a backwards arch, belly pulled in. You can imagine there's a rope pulling you from below your belly button forward, and the rest of your body is dragging behind. This is where you could create the propulsion. It comes from this hip joint and the base of the spine, and then this creates a twist in the spine that swings the arms and also swings the legs. So the whole thing is in the spine, a twist and a counter twist in the spine, and the arms and legs are relatively relaxed. And bouncing, you bounce in the hips and the ankles. Now the arms, of course, are just loose. They no tension in the arms, and you can see, just play around with it. I'm starting to walk, but what I'm focusing on is this feeling of squeezing the glutes, driving the hips forward, but still got a backwards arch in the lumbar. I'm not landing on the heels, always on the toes, just slightly on the toes, heels just a little bit up off the floor. Now we can try it a bit more dramatic. Arms up and behind the head, you really get a stretch in the spine. Open the shoulders, open the rib cage, and again, same thing, bouncing from the hips and the ankles, belly pulled in, but the upper body feels like it's leaning back. It's like the upper body is leaning back in a chair. The lower body is doing something separate. The lower body is bouncing between the hips and the ankles. And again, now it looks like a sort of comical traditional folk dance. but it's very, very efficient. This is effortless, and you're doing quite dramatic, powerful things, and it feels great. It doesn't feel like you're working hard, but it's tricky to do. You've got to practice this and experiment. So I've tried maybe, I think, 200 or 300 different varieties of walking over the years. Minute differences in the alignment of my hip joint, the twist in the hip joint, the ankle, everything, to try and find the optimum one. Now what I'm doing is just shuffling along and flicking out my feet. So I've got a gentle bounce, but I'm flicking out the feet, and this is what we were doing in the last part of this, number 2. We were working on swinging the legs and swinging the arms, and a little whip down to the feet. So go back and watch that one again. But here with the walk, you see I've got a bounce, a little sort of bounce, a half skip, and just flicking out the foot in between each step, nice and relaxed. And this allows you, in between steps, to release that leg. When you flick it out, it relaxes all the muscles, gets the blood flowing, and separates out the bones, opens up the bones. So this gives you a chance to relax and recuperate in between each step. Now we're going to a bit more power. It's the same principle, creating this circular movement, a swaying in the hips, a sinking down, and then I'm bouncing from the back hip, pushing the back hip in again because it was out and now it's in, and it was back and now it goes forward. So I've got to create this bounce in the hip joint, you see here, and the ankle. The ankle bounces, a backwards, sideways projected hip now pushes in and creates and propels you forward. So you're bouncing forward and you can get a bigger, more powerful step. But again, it's tricky. You've got to play with it slowly and carefully, try to feel how it works. And again, there's so much to it, the ankle or the hip, which one moves first. You've got to keep the belly pulled in so you don't lose the energy in the spine. The whole body's got to integrate together. And then when you move, it's the most efficiently because everything is connected. It moves as one piece. It doesn't, nothing is dragging behind, as it were. So there you go. I hope this made sense and you could follow this to some degree at least. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please do go back and watch the other 2 because they do lead up to this one, and there's going to be lots more coming in this series, so stay tuned for the next one coming very, very soon. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.